My dad leaned forward over the spotless white tablecloth at that fancy French bistro, casually pointing his fork toward my brother's brand new fiancée. "Don't worry about Mara," he said, using that smooth fake charm he saved for clients he wanted to impress. "She's our ongoing project." He followed it up by explaining that I was still trying to figure out how the real world worked. Lauren, the woman Evan was about to marry, didn't laugh or smile. She just looked straight at me, her eyebrows pulling together like she was studying a difficult math problem she hadn't solved yet. "My name is Mara Collins. I'm 29 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the quiet one in a family that only respects loud success. My parents built a boutique investment firm in Chicago, and my older brother Evan fit perfectly into that world. He was the golden child, the heir apparent, the one who never missed a step. Everything about their life was flashy and polished. Appearances were everything. They judged people by how much money they made, which clubs they belonged to, and how big the diamond was on someone's hand. And then there was me. I had no interest in managing portfolios or chasing clients. I wanted to build something new. I wanted to shake things up. I started my own logistics software company out of the corner of a freezing studio apartment downtown. My days were filled with the low buzz of servers, reheated coffee, and long nights where sleep came second to code. To me it was purpose. To my family it was a failure. They didn't see ambition. They saw someone who couldn't get started. My thrift store sweaters and my refusal to attend their endless charity galas weren't sacrifices for a startup in their eyes. They were proof that I didn't belong. I think they loved me in their own limited way, but they were deeply embarrassed by who I was. What they didn't know was that my quiet life was about to get very loud. Has your family ever treated you like a problem that needed fixing instead of a person with their own path? If so, tell me where you're watching from. I really do read every comment. The only reason we were at Le Jardin that night was to celebrate Evan's engagement. He was marrying Lauren, a woman my parents practically put on a pedestal. She was a senior partner at a big Silicon Valley venture capital firm. Exactly the kind of match they'd always hoped Evan would land. To impress her, they booked the private wine cellar room. It smelled like old oak, expensive wine, and pure ego. The whole night felt less like a celebration and more like a business deal being finalized. My dad spent most of the dinner bragging about Evan's recent deals, stretching the truth wherever it helped. My mom wouldn't stop praising Lauren's investment instincts, even though she clearly had no idea what she was talking about. I sat quietly, pushing a piece of scallop around my plate, wrapped in that familiar feeling of being invisible. Eventually, the attention shifted toward me, and the mood in the room instantly changed. It felt like the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "Mara's still messing around with her computer thing," my mom said to Lauren, patting my hand in a way that felt more insulting than kind. "We keep telling her it's time to get serious." Evan jumped in, adjusting his silk tie with a smug grin. "Yeah, we've even offered to get her an internship at the firm, answering phones, filing paperwork, just so she can experience a real professional environment. But she likes her freedom." Trying to be polite, Lauren turned to me. Her eyes were sharp, curious. "What exactly are you working on?" I barely had time to breathe before my dad cut me off, flicking his hand like he was brushing away an annoyance. "Oh, it's nothing exciting," he said. "Some app. One of thousands. It's more of a hobby, really." He sighed dramatically, like my existence was a heavy weight he'd been carrying for years. For the next 10 minutes, they talked about me as if I wasn't even there. They described me like I was lost, immature, and confused. My face burned, but I stayed quiet, watching the water droplets slide down my glass instead of saying what I wanted to say. The final blow came when the bill arrived in its velvet sleeve. My dad made a show of pulling out his black card, then looked straight at me with a sad little smile. "Don't worry about the cost, Mara. I've got it. You just focus on saving for rent." The message couldn't have been clearer. I was the charity case. I wasn't one of them. I nodded, my throat tight, silence settling in my chest like wet cement. None of this was new. That dinner was just the peak of a lifetime of being dismissed. A month earlier, my parents threw a massive summer solstice party at their lake house. It was the event of the season: investors, business partners, even local politicians. I didn't know it happened until I saw the pictures on my cousin's Instagram. Everyone smiling on the dock, champagne glasses raised. Everyone except me. When I called my mom the next day, she sounded cheerful and unconcerned. "Oh honey, we didn't want to overwhelm you," she said. "It was a very high-level crowd. Lots of market talk. We didn't want you to feel inadequate." Inadequate? That wasn't an accident. It was intentional. They were protecting their image, keeping me away so I wouldn't tarnish the brand they'd built. The public moments were worse. The previous 4th of July at a neighbor's barbecue, my dad stood by the grill holding court. "Evan's taking over the Asia accounts next quarter," he announced proudly. Then he laughed and added, "And Mara? Well, she's still finding herself." He even made air quotes with his tongs. People laughed. He turned my life into a joke so he could look like the patient, generous father. I drove home that night with that laughter stuck in my head, realizing my own dad had no problem telling the world I was a punchline. But the moment that really pushed me over the edge came 3 days before the engagement dinner. Evan called me, his voice loaded with fake concern. "Hey Chloe," he said. "I was thinking, money's probably tight for you. I can send you $500. Go buy a dress that doesn't look like it came out of a donation bin. I want you to look presentable for Lauren. First impressions matter." Presentable. He wasn't trying to help me. He was trying to manage me. He wanted to polish me up so I wouldn't ruin the picture-perfect life he was selling to his future wife. "Thanks, Evan," I said calmly. "But I've got something to wear. I'll be fine." "Are you sure?" he pushed. "I just want everything to be perfect." "I'm sure," I said, and I hung up. What none of them ever saw, what they never bothered to ask, was what my life actually looked like. What my family labeled as failure was actually something else entirely. I was in stealth mode. While they were out playing tennis and sipping drinks, I was on 4 a.m. video calls with my developers in Zurich. While they bragged about 5-figure commissions, I was quietly closing a Series B funding round with a group of international investors who understood the global reach of what I was building at Ether Systems. They heard the word app and pictured some silly game. What they didn't know was that I was creating an AI-driven supply chain platform, one that was already being courted by 3 major shipping conglomerates. I was locked under a strict NDA until the funding officially closed. I couldn't say a word even if I wanted to, so I let them believe their version of me. I remember sitting alone at my desk the night Evan offered me that pity money. Just minutes earlier, I'd signed the final digital contracts. My company's valuation now exceeded my father's entire firm. The irony was almost painful. Back at the restaurant, the tension felt thick enough to choke on. Throughout the dinner, Lauren was the only person who genuinely paid attention to me. Every time my family talked over me, she redirected the conversation right back. "What gap in the market are you solving?" she asked, cutting straight through my mom's rambling about table centerpieces. "What does your burn rate look like?" My parents shifted in their seats. They had no idea what a burn rate even was. Their expertise stopped at selling stocks and real estate, not building technology from the ground up. Evan let out an awkward laugh. "Babe, don't interrogate her," he said lightly. "She's not in our league. You work with real founders. Unicorns. Mara's just experimenting." He didn't say it to be cruel. That was the worst part. He truly believed it. The moment everything snapped was when my mother sighed and looked at me with forced sadness. "We just hope she finds a nice, stable man soon," she said. "Someone who can take care of her and pay the bills so she can stop all this." Lauren's polite smile disappeared instantly. She set her fork down carefully, the sound sharp in the quiet room. She looked from my mother's anxious face to mine, which stayed calm. I saw it then the moment it clicked for her. She leaned forward. "What did you say the name of your company was, Mara?" My heart started pounding. I met her eyes. "Ether Systems." Her eyes widened. She froze. The entire room went silent. She wasn't Evan's agreeable fiancée anymore. She was pure Silicon Valley instinct. "Ether," she repeated slowly. "Wait. C.V. Collins?" My father let out a nervous laugh. "Yes, Collins is our last name. What's your point?" She ignored him completely. Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with awe and fear at the same time. "You're the founder," she said. "The ghost of Chicago." I nodded and took a calm sip of water. Lauren snapped her head toward Evan. "You said you wanted to introduce me to visionaries. My firm has been trying to meet CV Collins for 8 months. We have a standing offer to lead her Series B, but we couldn't get past her legal firewall. She pulled out her phone and slammed it onto the table, the screen facing my family. It was a Bloomberg article. The headline read, "The Invisible Unicorn: How Ether Systems Became a $40 million Disruptor in Silicon Silence." There was no photo, just my company logo. And right there in bold letters was the name CV Collins. "This is her," Lauren demanded. "This is the little project you've been mocking?" My father stared at the phone, his face draining of color. My mother's mouth fell open, but no words came out. Evan looked back and forth between the screen and me, his expression splintering into shock, jealousy, and panic. Every insult they'd ever thrown at me, failure, charity case, wasted potential, hung in the air, suddenly ridiculous. I didn't know," my father stammered. "No," Lauren said coldly. "You didn't ask." For the first time in my life, my family had absolutely nothing to say. And that silence finally was beautiful. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. I calmly folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. I stood up and smoothed the front of the dress I'd bought with my own money that could buy that restaurant 3 times over. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Lauren," I said warmly. "Have your team call my assistant on Monday. We can talk Series B." Then I looked at my family. They seemed smaller somehow. Shrunk. "I've got a board meeting at 7 a.m., I said evenly. "Enjoy the wine. Dad, you've got the bill, right?" I walked out of the private room without looking back. I passed through the dining room and stepped into the cool night air. The silence behind me wasn't the silence of being ignored anymore. It was the silence of a hierarchy collapsing. They didn't lose a daughter that night. They'd lost her years earlier. Every time they rolled their eyes, every time they made me feel small. That night, they just realized they'd lost the privilege of knowing the woman I became. If you've ever had to build something real in silence while the world doubted you, hit that subscribe button. This is a safe place. If this story made you angry, emotional, or satisfied in the best way, don't let it disappear quietly. Smash that like button. It helps these real stories of betrayal and hard-earned justice reach the people who need them. Drop a comment. Tell me what part hit you hardest. Whose side are you on? What would you have done? Your voice keeps this fire burning. Share this with someone who needs the reminder that silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. Subscribe to Echoes of Revenge for more raw, unforgettable stories of power, deception, and ice-cold justice you won't hear anywhere else. Turn on all notifications so the next story finds you the moment it drops. Your likes, comments, shares, and subscriptions keep unheard voices alive. And sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't staying quiet. It's being heard loud and clear. Thanks for being here. Let's keep the echoes ringing.